everybody. It's Friday, March 4th, and we're here with another episode of our occasional series, Nonprofit Executive Spotlight, in which we feature nonprofit executives seeking their next opportunity. Rogue Tulips Consulting provides the service to help our colleagues find that job that fits them best and match outstanding people with outstanding organizations. Today, our guest is Bob Skelton, who has a varied background, but the best way to summarize that is that Bob loves solving complex problems. He has a legal background, an IT background, a human resources background, and most importantly, and most awesomely, in my opinion, he is an outstanding operations officer. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Well, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been, for the past 17 years, I served as the Chief Administrative Officer for ASAE and the Center for Association Leadership. Absolutely enjoyed my time there, especially because, we got to do so many different things. And really, I got to meet great people who were really focused on the missions of their organization. They're out to change the world for the better. And working with those kind of people, it just really it's just an uplifting way to live and to be. I came out of the technology industry before I joined ASAE, and actually I was with Toyota before then, and it's got to drive some great cars. That's the one thing I do miss about that job. But when you're working for for-profit companies and you're with the startups in the technology industry, it's a lot of high energy. It can be a lot of fun, but you're focused on making money. Mm-hmm. You're focused on making the sales. And are you really changing the world? Are you really doing some good in the world? Well, maybe peripherally, mm-hmm. but probably not. It's all about the almighty dollar. And then going into the nonprofit world with the ASAE, it was such an eye opener for me, and that's really where I want to stay. It's what I enjoy. I enjoy making a difference for people. That's where human resources comes in. It's about helping people. It's about coaching people to their highest potential performance. It's about providing them the information and the guidance to help them develop their own careers. And to go out and do good things in the world for them, wherever it may take them. So, and then, as part of that, everything we do, I think, in the nonprofit sphere, it's about people. It's about trying to get people to do the right thing, trying to get people to do the good things. So then it's okay. So when you have a mission-based organization, how do you make sure everybody's aligned to accomplish the mission of that organization? And, sometimes it's, you got to keep the trains running on time. That has to happen. You've got to keep the money going in and going out in the right ways. You have to make sure that things are working right, not only to fulfill the mission, but to also to keep people engaged in your organization and making it a good place to work. That's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy solving those kinds of problems, mm-hmm. of helping to make the organization not only a better place to be, but to be more successful in serving their mission.
Well, and I think you've landed on the most obvious, yet perhaps I'm going to say least on our mind point difference between the for-profit and nonprofit world. And for-profit is about money, and that's okay because nonprofits need money too. So I think though all of us who work in that sector, the nonprofit sector, agree with you on that point. It's more fun and fulfilling to help people who are helping people. So I applaud that. Let's talk a little bit about operations, since that is where you have your most recent experience. What do you think is the biggest issue facing operations officers in the early 21st century?
Well, there's so many right now. The pandemic, I think, is really just thrown a hand grenade into, everything. And the way we thought about was the was the best way to do things. Technology suddenly now becomes ever so much more important. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, how do we manage our use of technology while still maintaining the culture of our organization? How do we manage those changes? How are we going to work differently to get the mission of the organization accomplished? In some cases, let's face it, over the past 2 years, it's how do we survive as an organization, where things suddenly, became so different, and all the ways we used to bring that revenue in may have gone away or just, changed completely. Mm-hmm. So many organizations depend on meetings, to bring in the revenue. That was gone for 2 years. It's starting to come back. In theory, people love to get together. I think they do want to be around others, but I think they've also figured out that good use of technology allows you to reach many, many more people in a much more efficient way. Mm-hmm. It's not the be all and the end all, but I think it really now has become more in the forefront than some of the in-person meetings were in the past. So that means you've got to have that infrastructure in place to be able to do it. You've got to have the right people that can do it and that can think about what may be coming down the pike. I think ASAE was very fortunate in that we already had all the infrastructure in place to allow for remote work. It's because we saw that was coming, maybe a little bit earlier than others. So then, we had I think 24 hours to make the switch when the pandemic really hit. And it was like, okay, everybody, take your services home and dial in because you've all done it already anyway.
Right.
And it's a couple of minor glitches, but overall it worked very, very well. Mm-hmm. But then what does that mean for the business? How, on the HR side, how do we make sure people stay connected? Especially with all the other issues that happened during the pandemic, like the George Floyd murder, now war with Ukraine, all these other things. How do you keep people connected through these big, big societal issues? What are you going to do differently to reach your members? How are you going to fulfill your mission? If you're, a conservation-based organization, you can't get people out to the field. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do instead to help that mission continue to go forward? And while, you still have to pay people. Mm-hmm. You still have to make sure the benefits are working. You still have to, make sure that your infrastructure works and enables you to be successful. My specialty has always been, it's been on the inside. How do we make sure the trains stay running on time? How do we make sure the financial systems are working the way they need to? How do we make sure that people that are still remote or still out in the field still get the resources they need, but just in a different way? Mm-hmm. That's right now. I mean, it can't be any more complex.
That's right. That is, and sometimes it's complicated as opposed to complex. Because I always look at complex meaning more than one part, but complicated harder than it needs to be. That's how I define that. But what I really love in your comments, Bob, is you keep coming back to people. You keep using the word people, members, HR. How can we help people? And I think that really stands out about you. So you've made a lot of really good points about technology and how we're using it differently, but probably not unexpectedly. You mentioned you saw that coming before. So what do you think, and this is more of an opinion question, what do you think the impact of that is on culture and how people view the world?
I think it really has changed a lot of cultures, hopefully for the better. Mm-hmm. I do know some situations where it's just exacerbated problems.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's enough.
And the biggest thing there is managers. Mm-hmm. People who have to manage other people. Good managers figure it out because they know to stay in touch. They know how to talk to people, whether it's through video chats like we're doing, or in person or on the phone. They know how to do it. But if somebody was a bad manager before offices shut down, they didn't get any better remote. In fact, they probably got a lot worse.
I shouldn't laugh, but it's true.
Yeah, but I also think that it's given us now the opportunity to say, how can we do things differently that work better for everybody? I'm not going to say that everybody should be fully remote, because I don't think that's the answer. When I attended a recent webinar, they were talking about some of the data now that's come out post-pandemic about remote work and hybrid and flexibility and all these different issues. And surprisingly, it was the younger staff that wanted to get back into the office, because so much in the beginning of somebody's career is based on making the connections that they didn't feel they could make well just on a remote basis. That those happenstance, the water cooler talk, the running into somebody in the hallway just doesn't happen when you're fully remote. It can if managers are very deliberate about it, but most aren't. So that younger generation that wants to get ahead, they want to learn, they feel that they should be in the office at least part of the time. They don't necessarily want to go in all the time, but that they do have to be in there part of the time. Whereas the older generation, the older folks, they're like, oh yeah, I'm fine working remote. Great, great. This is wonderful. Do it again. Well, you might have thought it was the opposite, right?
Right. Well, that's one of those myths. We'll have to talk on an episode of the podcast, I guess, about the myths about older people and technology, because that's exactly what they are. There's a lot of misconceptions about how older people, and which is anybody over 35, how they use technology. But I think that's a really good insight about younger people that you just made. I had not ever thought of it that way. But I think having that opportunity to connect in person with your coworkers, your colleagues, and then maybe going to networking events probably is much more important at that point. The rest of us are already established and have our network, so we're fine working from home. So, well, this has been such a great conversation, Bob, and I'm really glad you've been on with us for this episode. So, as we're wrapping up the episode, what is your ideal organization? Like, can you describe the kind of organization you would like to work at that you feel you could bring all of this vast experience and knowledge and wisdom to?
To me, it would be a nonprofit organization with a strong mission that really was trying hard to change things for the better. We have a lot of challenges in this country and elsewhere, and I'd like to be part of the solution. And to, I think I can do that working from the inside to really help the organization succeed better.
And what kind of position are you looking for? Are you looking for another C-suite position?
Well, yeah, I kind of like being in that role because what I enjoy about being in the C-suite is that it gives you the ability to touch so many different areas of the organization and really to help bring things together. I know that's something I'm very good at. I can facilitate those discussions because it's never just a finance issue. It's never just an HR issue. It's never just an IT issue. It's how do you bring this together to find the right solution for the organization? And I enjoy doing that.
Well, I think you would be a wonderful asset to any organization, Bob. You are a leader. You bring that gravitas based on experience. And I could totally see you helping run teams at a nonprofit that is making the world a better place. And that's what we are all hoping to do. So, Bob, somebody's going to watch this. They're going to say, hey, I want that guy on my team. How can they get in touch with you?
Sure. Always, through LinkedIn, just search under Bob Skelton. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that pops up at the moment. But also my email is rskelton, RSKELTON, 5923 at comcast.net.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Bob. And I know you're going to get scooped up really quickly. So everyone, that's Bob Skelton, expert at operations, bringing HR, IT, and legal background and so much more to your organization. So reach out to Bob and have that conversation. So on behalf of Bob and myself, thank you for joining us for this episode of Nonprofit Executive Spotlight. And if you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips, check us out at roguetulips.com. We'll be back with another episode unless everybody gets a job. Until next time.